your microphone.
So now we're using the mic that I plugged into his phone there. So you can hear it.
My phone up all the way.
Okay.
So Mark is packing.
I hear you better. Okay, how about now?
You seen that, huh? Yeah.
Yeah,
that's socks on every day.
That's perfect. Yeah. So with me I have Mark. Is it okay to use your last name, Mark?
No, let's don't do that.
No, just Mark.
Now we'll just use Mark. They'll figure it out if they really want to know, but we'll just go by Mark for right now.
Okay, and welcome back, Dave Wilbanks. We had Dave on the show a couple of weeks ago, and so they're sitting outside in what is the town again in where you guys are?
We live in Pushpataha. Well, I live in Pushpataha County in Oklahoma, southeast Oklahoma.
Now, and well, Mark's been having some activity. That's the reason for the interview. He's been having some activity on his property, right, Mark? So, for people, well, obviously people listening to this podcast haven't really heard the story. Do you want to give us a rundown on what's been happening on your property?
Well, yeah. Well, I've been living here for 40 years. I moved here from Arkansas, and there's been stuff that's been happening the entire time I've been here, but I wasn't aware of it or made it, it wasn't until November 11th, my son come inside our bedroom and he said, "Dad, there's a bear outside. He has a white face and he's looking at me." And I asked him, I said, "Was it walking like the horses and the dogs?" He said, "No, it was walking like me and you, Dad. There was two of them." And I never taken that stuff serious, and I knew they had Bigfoot festivals and stuff locally, and to me, that was just a joke. It was right up there. Even the Indian folklore and stuff surrounding the Sasquatch, to me, that wasn't much different than, Zeus or anything else, but, folklore stuff like that. But I'd watched Missing 411, David Pilatus documentary, and there was a kid that went missing for a couple of days, came back and described a bear that took care of him for a couple of days. People have heard about that. Well, that immediately came back to my memory, and I got concerned and I went outside and got my rifle and whatnot, but I didn't see anything. But I took what he was saying serious because his description, nobody asked him any questions about it other than how it walked. He come in there and said, "Dad, it's a bear. It has a white face and it was looking at me." And it had bothered him. And anyway, so I started starting to pay attention more to what stuff that was going on at night. Well, that night, after he had his sighting, that very night, about 15 minutes after we laid down, turned the lights off, and everything got quiet, the dogs started howling and acting weird. And the only other time I've heard the dogs do that was one night I heard some chatter and a melodic whistle sound right outside my bedroom wall. And it struck me weird because I've never heard anything like that in my life. And I Googled, the best way I could describe what I heard was like a melodic whistle with some chatter, and the Google results kept coming back as a Bigfoot vocalization. But I still didn't take it serious. And, it's amazing how you just discount certain things just to remain in your comfort zone, so you don't, anyway. But after that stuff happened with my son, I started putting cameras out. And it took about, there was things going on, the dogs acting weird, but it took about a month before I actually caught something on video. And it was the shadow moving towards my home. You see a shadow approaching my house, and the dogs are acting weird and whining and stuff on a video that I have on my YouTube. And I shot 4 warning shots out the front door, and I was all gung-ho. I was going to go outside and confront this thing. I thought if I had the chance, but something told me right when I was fixing to walk out the front door that night, when I seen the shadow approaching the house, I got to flash back to that Jurassic Park scene when there's a professional hunter going to kill one of these raptors, and that raptor's drawing his attention, that one comes out the side bushes and gets him. And for some reason, I thought about that, and I said, I don't think I better go outside. Not that they would have done that, but it just, for some reason, that's the thought that I had. I opened up the front door, and I shot 4 warning shots out the front door, just hoping to scare it off. And I called 911. Told them I wanted a deputy out my house, that I had a trespasser on my property. And the deputy come out. He didn't take it serious. Because he asked me, he said, "Do you think you might know who it is?" I was like, "Well, I don't know anybody around here except for the people at the VFW and the local fire department. And, I really don't have any friends here." And I've never had any trespassers on my property that I've known of. We've never had anything missing. My shop's unlocked and stuff of that nature. And he asked me, "Would you think you might know who it is?" I said, "Well, I'm not so sure it's a who. It might be an it." He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, my son had a Bigfoot sighting. I believe to be a Sasquatch sighting the other day." And anyway, that was the end of that conversation pretty much. He said, "Well, just fill out your name and address and phone number on the top of this police report, and I'll fill in the rest for you later on at the police station." Well, I knew this guy wasn't going to file that police report, and that's why he didn't want me to put anything in the bottom part. Well, I went to the police station the next morning at 8 o'clock because I wanted a police report filed. I wanted a paper trail showing that I was having a repeat problem with trespassing on my property. That way, if I had to take action, I could show that I had repeated complaints to the police department to back up why I had to do what I had to do. And so I went down and I took the video off my security camera and uploaded it to YouTube, and I wrote down the link to my YouTube to give to the police. And that's the only reason why I initially loaded the original video to YouTube, was just to give it to the police. Well, I went down there and I got to talking to one of the deputies, and we were sitting there visiting, and I showed him the video, and he said, "Well, this right here," he said, "does it happen all the time or is it seasonal?" I looked at him because that struck me kind of weird question about a trespasser. And I said, "Well, since when is trespassing a seasonal event?" And he said, "Well, I now smoke a cigarette. Let's go outside. Let's talk." So we went outside and got to talking. And he said, "Look," he said, "I know what you think that is." He said, I think it's the same thing you do." He said, "It's always about this time of year." It was November. He said, "The hunters are entering the woods, deer season starting. And so there's a lot more activity in the woods, and then plus their food source and stuff changes with the berries and whatever other stuff they're eating." And he said, "So they're on the move more." And he said, "You shot out the front door." He said, "Usually when you do something like that, they don't come back." But he gave me his personal cell phone number and told me if I had any more problems to call him. And he called me the next morning and asked me if I had any activity, and there wasn't. And he said, "Well, if you have any more problems, give me a call." Well, and that was December the 4th when he called, because the shadow approached the house December 3rd, I believe. And, well, anyway, we started putting game cameras out and stuff of this nature, and was trying to capture, more evidence of them coming up to my house, to validate my son's story and whatnot. But, we heard a bunch of limb breaks and things of this nature. I mean, loud limb breaks, sound like a gunshot going off, no wind or anything, out in the woods. But, that's not going to, that's not really, I need more than that. But, so around Christmas time, it was December the 25th. It was actually Christmas, it was the evening time. I had my cameras out. I got to where I would move my cameras. Even if I just picked them up and moved them 10 foot, I got wireless Arlo cameras. I would try to relocate them a couple of foot, and I keep the infrared lights turned off on the cameras through the app. Because if you got the infrared lights turned on, they're not going to come anywhere near those cameras. And I got 19 game cameras out there in the woods surrounding the house, and caught 2 images out of 4 months, because they can see those cameras. And if nothing else, I believe more than anything else, they can see the infrared spectrum, and they avoid those game cameras. So I got to where I used the game cameras more as like a barrier to deter them from approaching the house from like this area here. And it would force them to approach my house from a limited amount of options. And then I would put my wireless cameras with the infrared lights on those areas that I figured they would have to approach my house now. And I would listen with the microphone that's on the cameras, because it's one of the cameras, security systems that's equipped with a microphone. And I would listen in the darkness on this camera and listen for something approaching my house. Well, on December 25th, about 9 o'clock, you hear bipedal footsteps running in fast, short bursts and stopping and going. And the camera was on my kid's playhouse. And I figured that there was a set of pine trees there coming up to the playhouse. And I figured it was running pine tree to pine tree, getting closer to the playhouse. So I switched to another camera that was on the playhouse that was pointing over the pasture behind it. And I caught the eye shine. And man, I mean, you can see the slots of the eyes, the pupils in the eyes, and the eyes are far apart. And it was that close, but it was on all fours, and the camera was up high, and it had looked at the camera. And I mean, out of that video that I shot of it behind the playhouse right then, now the infrared lights are off, so it's dark, but it had to turn its head towards that camera with his eyes closed, because it turned at that camera and just blinked his eyes open for 1 second. And out of that video, his eyes are only in view for 1 frame. And you figure you would, like if I turned to look at the camera, you figure you would see one eye, then two eyes, and then see, it turn back. But it wasn't like that. It was just a flash of two eyes, and that was it. And you could see the pupils in the slots of the eye and how far they're all apart. But it had to turn its head towards that camera with his eyes closed to minimize the amount of time that his eyes would be caught on video. And that's when I realized how intelligent these things are, that I was dealing with something that was easily as intelligent as a human being, but has a certain skill set in evasion and stealth that they're probably taught and put into practice from birth. And I realized that's what, just how intelligent that they were just by that, how it minimized its eye shine on that video. Of course, my dumb ass, I grabbed a pistol and flashlight, I went outside looking for it. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I was about 10 or 15 foot away from it and never saw it. And in that time, first time I went out, it shined a flashlight and it cast its lower torso, cast a shadow on a horse shed that's behind the playhouse. And this thing is so skinny, it's a juvenile. I mean, it's got real thin legs. It's got a thigh gap that make these women out here jealous. I mean, you could put a Coke can in between the thigh gap on this thing. It's so skinny. And I never saw it at the time because I'm looking for something that's 9-10 foot tall, 1,000 pounds, and all this other stuff, and this guttural growl that you hear all the time. It was none of that, no smell, anything. I went back inside the house. About 20 minutes later, I turned the camera back on. Something had set something in front of that camera, blocking the view. But I could still hear something moving around out there. So I got my gun, flashlight, went back out there again. Shine a flashlight, didn't see anything. I came back inside and my cameras were recording while I was outside. And when I reviewed that video, I was shining my flashlight on the playhouse area, and I reached down to get my pistol out of the holster. And when I had my focus on my gun, looking down, but the flashlight shining forward, it stood up from where it was kind of by the corner fence post behind the playhouse, and it relocated behind the playhouse for more cover. And it moved right in front of my flashlight beam and cast a shadow on the shed behind the playhouse, and I never saw it. And it did it very fast. And I never heard it move. And I wasn't more than maybe 15 foot away from it at that time. And that was another sign of the intelligence that these things have, because that split second while I looked down to get my pistol out of that holster, it took advantage of my focus on my gun, and it reacted instantly to take better cover and no hesitation. And I went back inside and I found that video I seen the shadow, and you can see it, the arms, the head, it moving, and you can see it crouching back down to take more cover behind the playhouse. I didn't even want to tell my wife about it because, she was on the fence about whether there was something out there or not. And I've been spending a lot of time on this shit. And it was starting to get on her nerves, to be honest with you. I went ahead and I showed it to her. It freaked her out, honestly. So I look back on it, what I'm fixing to tell you now, I regret doing. But you got to realize there's something right out there in my front yard that people say doesn't exist, that I know's been watching my kid, validates everything that I thought of them watching my children and whatnot. And this thing is actually real, that people say it doesn't exist. And I never believed that something could be out there evading people for hundreds of years. And it'd be right here. You can hear the highway from my house, but they're right here in my yard. And I got an AR-15 with a night vision scope on it. And, I told my wife, I said, on the count of 3, throw the front door open. Because from my front door, you can see the playhouse right across my driveway. I said, throw the front door open on the count of 3. I had the night vision scope on, the AR-15 with a, a 5.56 round loaded. And I could see it standing behind the playhouse. It has railing across the playhouse. And I could see it looking at me between the slots on the railing. And it just sit there and watched me, and I watched it for, it seemed a lot longer, but it was probably about 10 or 15 seconds that I sit there and watched it through that night vision scope looking at me. And I had my finger on the trigger. And I'll tell you, they have a heightened awareness, because I swear when I went to pull that trigger, it must have been looking at my trigger finger, because right when I went to squeeze that trigger, I shot, but it shot off. And my wife had made me put up this tent thing that goes over a picnic table, and it was blocking my view, and I couldn't take another shot. Well, I was pissed about that. I tore that damn thing down the next day. But anyway, now I regret shooting at the juvenile that night. But at the time, I didn't even know what. All I knew is there was something out there in my yard that looked extremely weird, that wasn't human. I caught that on video. What are you going to do? I got kids inside the house. This thing's right outside. I know people tell me I need to gift it and give it peanut butter, but I promise you, man, the advice people give me, if they was in my house that night, they would not be wanting to go outside and give them a jar of peanut butter. I told this one person, I said, well, you know, you can give me that advice, but I promise you, if you was in my situation with your children in my house that night, you would not take your own advice. And I said, I wish you was here that night, because I put a jar of Jiffy in your hand, and I'd be like, Bigfoot's here, bitch, go out there and say hi. And I asked right out the front door. And I said, I guarantee you wouldn't be taking that jar of peanut butter out there to it. You'd be trying to claw your ass back inside my front door. I said, the advice and stuff that people try to give and things like that, if they don't have real world experience and actually went out there and done that, they shouldn't be trying to tell me that's what I should do. And I realize looking back now, I'm glad I missed that juvenile, because I didn't realize it at the time, but I had video of the adult that I believe to be the female and the male that's probably the parents of this juvenile. Because December 24th, my security camera that's on my shop recorded 5 videos. And they're short, but they recorded it because of the movement of my horses. But I looked at those videos after what happened on December 25th and 26th, and I noticed that the horses are kind of moving away from the tree line kind of quick. And I said, where are they moving from? And I zoomed in, and I could see a large adult male, and I mean, he's huge, about 8 foot tall. I'd say, 700 pounds probably. And he's standing like Captain Morgan with his leg up, so I nicknamed him Captain Morgan. But in those 5 videos that were taken all within a 30-minute time frame, you see 3 different adults behind that leaning tree. They were taking turns using that leaning tree as a vantage point to watch my kids, because you can see my playhouse area from that tree. And then you see what I believe the adult female, and it has a white face, just like what my son described, a white face. And then you see another black male that's not as big as the first one. I didn't see that video of the adults till December the 27th. And that's when I realized that was probably the mom and dad of the juvenile that come up to the house on Christmas night in 26. And, there's something about a family unit. This kind of makes you feel a little better. But then after that, I started catching evidence of other adult Sasquatches. There was a game camera I put a game camera behind the playhouse after what happened on December 25th and 26th. And I caught 2 images of one coming and it leaving on December the 27th. And it was right after dark. It was like 7 o'clock at night. It was there early. And it didn't look like the other ones that I caught on December the 24th. I believe it to be a different one. And there's been some other ones that I caught on that doesn't fit the family unit. It's probably part of the same clan, I guess. But, well, it was after that I had done so much to try to keep them away from my house. And I just shot at it and all this other stuff and whatnot. And I started becoming concerned for my kids' safety, to be honest with you, because these things were approaching my house. I called the police again on December 26th, and the same deputy come to my house. Because I told him flat out, I said, look, this thing's coming up to my house. I caught it on video last night. I said, if it comes back tonight, I'm killing it. And he said, look, before you do that, he said, let me come out and talk to you. So he came out, and he said, I know some people that's has an organization. It's the Native Oklahoma Bigfoot Research Association. He said, so he called the guy that runs that, Troy Hudson. And Troy and one of his friends are part of the group of research. He came out the next day, and they found all kinds of stuff and was showing me things that I didn't know, about the Sasquatch. And he actually does seminars to the different Indian tribes around here, telling them about their, the history of the Sasquatch for the ones that don't know about it. And, he gave me some tips what I could try to do to keep them away from the house. It didn't work. They still came to the house. He said, go out there and tell them you don't want them around, that it's scaring you and your kids, and they can understand you. And they didn't work. And anyway, so I had to make a hard decision. And I pulled my kids out of school while they was on Christmas break, and we got a camper, and we took our camper and pulled it down to my wife's mother's house, my mother-in-law. And I put her and the kids down there in Arkansas until I could get some things done around here to where I could ensure their safety and felt better about them being here. And I'm going to tell you, people want to get on there and talk about the quality of my videos, or it's something being, not high resolution and things of that nature. And, or like, what's your intention? What are you getting out of this? I'll tell you, I ain't got nothing out of this. And I had never no intention of telling anyone or sharing this outside of my family. it wasn't until I started watching videos of Scott from howtohunt.com and David Pilatus and Scott Carpenter, where they're doing the Sasquatch awareness program, where they believe that you need to make people aware of these creatures in certain areas so you can either be prepared or make a decision not to go in that area that they've been seeing. People need to be aware. And I said, you know, I've got a lot of evidence that I've captured. It's not going to prove the existence of Sasquatch, but what I've captured in conjunction with the experience that I've shared, it might plant a seed in somebody, you know, and if their child comes to them and tells them about an experience they had, they might flash back to something I shared, and they might take it serious and take action. And that's why I made the decision to come forward and share what I had and tell people my story. Like I said, everything that I've been sharing is back from December, and it's April. So, if I was trying to get attention, I've been doing this back in December and January, not in April. But anyway, people just don't realize just how hard that decision was to make, and they're trying to tell me how I should be doing this and that. I'm gonna tell you, I sit in my bathroom and I cried that night that I made the decision I was gonna have to move my kids, because I'm gonna tell you, my kids have only been away from me and my wife for one night in 4 years. We love our kids, and they've never been away from us. And for them to have to relocate in the middle of a school year, living in a camper down in Pine Bluff, which is the armpit of Arkansas. Shout out to all my friends in Pine Bluff. It's, at one time they had the second highest murder per capita in the United States, only second to Chicago. I mean, it's a bad area, but they don't have any problems out there where our mother lives. But anyway, they had to leave their Christmas presents behind because they're going to be living in a camper, have limited space and things of that nature. I mean, it was hard on those babies to go to not having a bedroom, living in a camper until I could get this stuff done. And we didn't want to pull them back out of school again, and we was going to wait till the end of the school year. And it was a very, very difficult time, man. There wasn't a day went by that I didn't cry, missing my kids. I'll never forget when I took them to Pine Bluff and I dropped them off. And my father-in-law, somebody I respect and I admire, trying to tell them that I was having to leave my family and my kids behind because Sasquatch was watching them, and I was worried about their safety. And they insinuated that I was trying to abandon my family, back out on my responsibilities as a father and as a husband. And but you know what? I never backed down from what I knew was the truth, that these things were really there and they were watching my children. And I never lied about and said, well, I just need to, we got a prowler around or something like that. I told them exactly what it was. And well, since then, I've convinced him that they're real, but that was a very difficult time to try with my in-laws, and because you got to picture how it looked. Yeah. I'm dropping my wife and my kids off, and I'm going back to Oklahoma without them. Talking about I got to go up here and deal with a Bigfoot problem. It sounds like a pile of bullshit. And I can see why they would think that, but man, it was a difficult time and a difficult decision. And man, I miss my kids every day. I'll never forget, I walked in that house, and it was dead silence that night after I dropped them off. And I had never heard that before, because my house is always full of life. Kids making noises, screaming, and all, and fighting and everything else, and the cartoons running, the wheels on the bus go round and round, and it was dead silence, man. And I'm going to tell you, I started getting bitter towards this situation with Sasquatch, and, but eventually I got past that. But I'm going to tell you, I was out to kill that son of a bitch for a while. I bought a new shotgun, certain kind of slugs to kill grizzly bears and all this other stuff. But anyway, I took measures, infrared light banks and things of this nature, and cut back brush. And my kids were going to wait till the end of the school year, but then the first case of the coronavirus in Arkansas was in the town that my wife and kids were living in. So I went down there and got them and brought them back to Oklahoma, because we got a ranch here. We got a lot of room. We're not around people. We're social distancing is just a way of life for us before the coronavirus. So I felt more comfortable than being up here, and they've moved back up here. We still have activity. And I got a video just 2 nights ago of something, it's moving behind my playhouse. And my son and I had a sighting. I got a 16-year-old son that come to visit. And we was walking down the power line down here about 3 or 4 days ago. He's got good eyesight. He's young. Me, I don't see so good. But he said, Dad, look at that, look at that. And he was pointing up the power line, and one had walked out from the woods and was crossing the power line. Well, by the time I saw it where he was pointing at, it was about halfway across the power line, but it was easily the biggest one I've ever seen. It was absolutely massive. It was at least 10 foot tall. Wow. And I saw it halfway across the power line, but he saw it come out the woods. And that was just a few days ago. But I will say this, I don't have any evidence of him approaching my house anymore. Because there was a time my son's like, well, there's a man lives in the woods. He comes to my window at night and watches me while I sleep. And that was a couple of years ago. I don't have any evidence that that's going on. I know they're still out there. But I pulled all my game cameras out of the woods because I'm trying to establish a boundary with them that that's theirs. And I know they think everything's theirs. But I pulled all my game cameras out of the woods because that's their area. I won't try to film them and record them in their territory. All the cameras and the lights and things that I've got are in my yard to protect my property. And I'm not going to tolerate them coming in my yard and approaching my house. And I'm trying to establish that boundary. And so far with the infrared lights, that's the key thing. You can put up floodlights and all that other stuff, but I don't, it's going to look like a Trace Atkins video. Every light in the house is on and backyard lit like the crack of dawn. And I don't want all those lights to make my house look like a damn runway from the highway and stuff. But the infrared lights, they don't like those. They stay away. And the infrared lights illuminate my yard better than floodlights do. Well, since I put up those lights and other things, I don't believe they're coming in my yard anymore. But they're still here. We had some activity over at my mom's house a couple of weeks ago, and I come out with my gun and looked around because my aunt called me and said that something slapped on the side of their house next door right when she was going to bed, turned the light off, and she said it's 12:20 at night, and I got my shotgun and come out there and looked around. I went back inside the house and I turned one of my cameras on because I got some pan, tilt, and zoom cameras now, and I pointed it towards my parents' house in the area where my aunt's bedroom is, and about 10 minutes went by and I heard something push a tree down. And I mean, it was pow, snap, snap, snap. It was a fresh green tree. It pushed a tree down back there behind my parents' house. And I figured it did that because it was pissed I come out there with a gun and was looking for it. Messed up its good time that it had planned to come around here and watch us that night or whatever. But there's stuff like that still going on. But other than the trees being pushed down, I haven't really had any acts of aggression. I've never had them bluff charge me, or they've never slapped on the side of my house. They threw a couple of rocks or whatnot, but you know, they could be trying to get us to come outside because they like to observe us or whatever, you know. But that's pretty much the high points of the activity that we've been having since November, you know, last year.
Now, right behind you there, does that? I'm looking at the woods, and you're sitting like with your back to the woods. And did you put up that chain link fence recently, or has that always been there? I never saw it in the videos.
No, the chain link fence is recent, yes.
Now, how far do those woods go back?
Oh, we got 80 acres out here. Wow. I mean, it's a ways, yeah. And the thing about it is, this part of the woods, the property I've got one disabled neighbor that you can't see, and then at the back part of our property is an older lady lives back there. So nobody enters these woods. And I'll be honest with you, the 4 years that I lived here, until my dog disappeared December the 12th, a black Labrador I had. I never had to enter these woods before my dog disappeared. I don't hunt. I don't go out there in the woods. There's snakes out there and all kinds of other shit. I'm into riding on jet skis and being out there on a pontoon boat and having a mixed drink. I've never entered these woods the whole time I was here until my dog disappeared. And nobody hunts back here. There's no deer stands back here, anything like that. That might be another reason why they're here, is because they're virtually undisturbed. Nobody enters these woods, and nobody hunts back here. But yeah, it goes back there quite a ways. There's a creek back there. We got a pond over here, and a pond over here, and you know, that nature. But apparently they've been coming around for quite a long time, because there's things that's happened over the last few years that I look back on now.
Yeah.
That probably some of their activity, but my dad, we were sitting there talking one day. He's like, it wasn't even about Sasquatch or Bigfoot. It come to talking about something about the dog food coming up missing out of the shop. He said, well, we had 50-pound bags of dog food, and it got to where they was just coming up missing. And, you know, something's emptying out the dog food. And he said, so I had to start locking it up to keep, you know, and I'm like, well, why didn't you ever tell me this before? I said, because I'm going in the shop carrying off 50-pound bags of dog food. It's probably, you know, a Sasquatch. But he just even told me that recently, you know, and and that was before I ever lived here, you know, so they probably been coming around for, you know, quite a long time.
Did you talk to any of the neighbors about it or anything? You haven't spoken to them?
After I took my kids and my wife to Pine Bluff to stay, I decided I was going to go talk to my neighbors and talk to them and see if there was any other activity besides my house. And that was a hard decision because I really don't know my neighbors. I didn't want to come across as a crazy person talking about Sasquatch, but
yeah,
I used my dog coming up missing as a reason to go knock on their door and ask about if they see my black Labrador. And I shoehorn Sasquatch in there somewhere. And I get my phone out and start showing them some pictures and videos. Well, my immediate next door neighbor, he kind of chuckled when I brought up Sasquatch and showed him some stuff. But anyway, I visited two more neighbors, and one of the neighbors that I talked to, he never really considered or thought about Sasquatch. But he has something that he told me that I thought was really interesting. He said, you know, he said, now that you mention it, he said, on December 24th, we was at my parents' house. They live on the same road I do. And he said, we was over there eating Christmas dinner. And my niece was at the back door, at my mom's back door, and it has a glass back door. And she said, who's that man standing out there in the woods? And he goes, I went over and looked, and we didn't see anybody. He said, but we went out there and looked because we was worried maybe some people, Tom, or some pervert was out there looking or something like that. But she said, who's that man standing out there in the woods? On December the 24th. And I have 5 videos of the 3 adults on December 24th at 10:30 a.m. right here on my property. And he had something that his niece said was a man standing in the woods on December the 24th also. And that kind of got his attention. I talked to another neighbor, and their dog turned up missing around the same time my dog did, around December the 12th. Their dog turned up missing within 2 days of my dog. So, I mean, I got some information from talking to them, but none of them have had any kind of, you know, activity. But I'll tell you this, until you're looking for them, chances are you're never going to see them. They could be coming up in your yard and be around here, and you would never see them or know or have any idea that they were there until you start really looking for them and paying attention to things. Because I know they've been coming around for years, but it wasn't until I actively started trying to capture evidence and I started listening and looking and things of that nature until I actually saw something. So there's probably other stuff going on, but people aren't paying any attention on their phones or whatever, and get home from work, go inside, and not paying attention to what's going on outside after dark and things of that nature. But that's what
hunters are probably having experiences all the time, and they don't even know it, because hunters are, you know, they always say, well, I've been in the woods for 20 years and I haven't seen anything. But you know, they could be right there and making noise and stuff, and the hunters didn't, you know, chalk it up to being Sasquatch. They probably thought it was something else.
There's actually more hunters see things that just don't report it. I got
that too.
The other day of a hunter that shot a deer, and one of these things picked it up and ran off with it.
Really?
Just shared, yeah. So it does happen, just not, a lot of it goes unreported.
Well, when I think of a Sasquatch and a deer, you always hear about that. I mean, it's a kind of a grisly thought about like how a Sasquatch would catch a deer, but what it would do to it afterwards, it's a grisly thing to think about. You know, if they can do that to a deer, what can they do to you, you know?
I tell you what, they move so fast. I can tell you that they move fast, but until you see it for yourself, how fast that they just instantaneous acceleration. I mean, it's like they don't even build up speed. They're top speed like that, you know. They move so fast that it'll blow your mind. Until you see it for yourself, I cannot describe it, and it makes sense to you till you see it for yourself how fast they move.
I've heard that before.
They can get it when especially the juveniles, they can get it when they want to. And I'm telling you, there was a time when my dog was chasing something, and it come out from behind my house, and whatever it was moving so fast between my house and ran behind my storm shelter. And I was looking in that direction when it ran out from behind my house, but it was moving so quick. And I had a 9mm 6 hour in my hand, and I didn't have time to even level that gun up. And it was already gone and out of sight, and my gun was still hanging by my side. And I could not focus my eyes on it and see it clearly because it was moving so quick. And it was dark. But the dogs were acting weird, and this is before my son had his experience. And my mom was gone, and my dad was over here by himself, and he's disabled. And I come over here to check on him, and I brought my pistol, and he said, well, go next door and get me something or whatever. So I went back to the house to get something. I was coming back, and the dog was chasing something, and it ran from behind my house and behind the storm shelter and right through here and hit out through the woods. But I tell you two things that struck me really weird was, one, I couldn't, it was moving so quick I couldn't focus and see it clearly. Second thing is, when it run from behind the playhouse, I immediately thought, I said, it's either going to have to jump this fence and I'm going to sit underneath the street light we've got, or it's going to have to turn and run through this fence line, and I'm going to hear it running through the woods, making racket, and, I probably shoot at it. I never saw it underneath the street light. It never jumped that fence. The dog ran through here and chased it, whatever it was, through the woods, but I never heard the footsteps, the footfall as it was running off. Never heard the footfall. But the dog chased whatever it was out through the woods. As bad as it was running, I could not hear the footsteps. And but it moved so fast between my house and ran behind that storm shelter that I didn't even have time to level that gun, let alone take a shot. And between the back of my house and that storm shelter is about the same distance of where it come out from behind my house. If it would have ran towards me, it could have made it to me just as easy as a storm shelter. And I'll tell you, I would not have had the time to level that gun, let alone put a bullet in it, let alone be able to put enough in it to stop it. I firmly believe I carry a weapon, but what makes it feel a little better, but I'm the only reason why I carry a weapon is that I know that they see me and they see that I'm armed, and it might make them, think twice about trying something, because I might get a shot off and they can't call 911 and have an ambulance come out here and get them, so they might think twice about doing something, and it just shows intent that if something happens, I am armed, but I don't believe that I would have the reaction time to even get a gun out if it ran at me as fast as I've seen them move, to even have the reaction time to get a gun out and actually be able to stop it before it got to me.
Well, they don't want to get injured also. Even if they get injured, it's a big problem, right?
Can't call 911 and an ambulance out here if it gets shot. But, people's like, oh, you need to go out there and take care of it and hunt it and all this other stuff. I'm going to tell you, it's not that easy. You can't just go out there and put a tree stand up and think you're going to sit there and wait on it, or look out the kitchen window and watch it. It doesn't work like that. They're so aware of you entering those woods. And I told David this last time he come, I said, watch, when we get near that fence, you're going to hear this owl hoot. And when we go out to the property and we come back to that fence, you'll hear that owl again. And I've noticed that every time I enter the pasture going out to the woods, that I hear this owl when I'm coming and when I'm leaving. And I believe that there it goes right there. And I believe that that's something mimicking an owl, letting the others know that I'm coming out towards the direction of the woods to entering the pasture. When I approach that fence, I hear it every time. And him and I was walking back, approaching that fence, and heard that owl hoot again. I mean, I believe that they got sentries watching to alert the others whenever I'm entering, their territory, the woods, or whenever I'm leaving. I'm telling you, they're very intelligent. And when it comes to remaining hidden, I've got a video of a juvenile Sasquatch squatted down by a corner fence post over here behind my playhouse. To me, I can see it very clearly, the shoulders, the head, but it knew that I was out there with a flashlight that night. It turned its back to me and crouched down to minimize its shadow that it was casting and me being able to see it. But it was so jet black, I panned my flashlight right over this thing, and I never saw it. And on the video, you'll see it by the corner fence post, and it's slowly moving in a crouched position to position itself in front of that corner post to minimize the shadow that it's casting. And that's another thing that really got my attention is even when you're really close to them and you pan a flashlight over them, the ones that hear, they never panic and shoot off. They don't make any quick sudden movement. They remain calm and they move in very slow increments not to draw your attention. And that's what this one was doing. It was small. It looked like almost like a chimpanzee. And it was moving very slowly to position itself in front of that corner post to minimize the shadow that it was casting when I shine my flashlight on it. And then my flashlight goes by, you'll see it, and it's moving, and I come back by. When I come back with the flashlight, it's already gone. You can see that right there clearly on the video. And anyway, so and that one's it's small. I mean, it's almost like a chimp. And for it to have that skill set at that young age, stealth and evasion, man, you got to realize these things are taught that from birth, and they put it into practice from day one. And that's why they're so good at getting away and not being seen, because it's something they put into practice every day. Can you imagine one by the time they gets into his 20s, its skill set that it is perfected of evasion and stealth? If one that young has that ability already, it's mind blowing. Something else. That's why nobody's killed, has a body specimen, because these things train from day one to avoid us.
You had some activity last night, you said, did you?
What's that?
Had some activity last night, you were saying.
Well, my son was here, and he's staying in the camper out there. I'm not so sure that it was last night, but he said he heard something moving around. I come out there and looked around. I didn't see anything, but I think he just got spooked. But now the night before, I got something on video moving behind that damn playhouse again. And I tell these researchers out there that's doing all the hooting and hollering and whooping and tree knocks and stuff, I'm like, you can save yourself a lot of time. Put up a swing set. That's all you got to do. You don't draw Sasquatch in, apparently, because I never had this problem until I put that playhouse with the swing set up. And the kids out there playing on it. And that's the kids' focal point of their activity, is that playhouse with the swings and stuff. And that's where these things position themselves, where they can see them playing on that playhouse. And that's when the juveniles came up, and that's where they come to, up there to that playhouse. I guess they want to see what the kids find so interesting and fascinating about that playhouse. So
that's freaky. Now,
draw Bigfoot in, apparently put up a swing. Swing in it. You save yourself a lot of trouble hooting and hollering, beating on trees. So.
Now, do you you don't let the kids out by themselves, and you always go out with them if they're in the yard?
We practice what Dave Pilatus talks about. He said that he talks about the point of separation. He said that the kids disappear when there's a point of separation, when they're out of eye view. We practice the no point of separation around here. Somebody has to have eyes on the kids all the time. When they're outside, I'm outside. These chairs and stuff we've got over in front of my house, and the table and everything, that's for us, one of us to sit down while the kids are playing outside. And another thing that I believe, as long as all my cameras are on and I have my yard covered in cameras, that is also having eyes on them and prevents a point of separation. But, we don't allow our kids into the woods. I don't allow my kids to get even near the tree line. And, no, they don't go outside unless somebody's out there watching them. Because I've got 3 young kids. I got a daughter that's 3. I got a boy that's 5 and another one that's 8. And, I've got 2 older boys, but, I got 3 young children and stuff. We keep eyes on. We used to leave the front door open and watch them out the window, and they'd be out there playing. Not anymore. If they go outside, somebody's got eyes on them. And we practice what Dave Pilatus said, no point of separation. If they go around the corner of the house, we're watching. So.
That's just another thing you have to worry about, because we had like one of those Walmart pools that you put up, but when my daughter was born, we took it down because what if just for a split second, my daughter got out of the house and climbed up into it or something like that? So we just didn't want to have to always be thinking about that. And you must always have to be thinking about that, about even in the house where your kids or the doors closed and all that shit.
Well, we put latches up high where the younger kids can't reach the latches. They used to be able to open the front door on their own and go outside. Yeah. And sometimes they would do it without asking us to go outside, and when we realize they're out in the yard. So we put latches on our door up high where they can't reach it. So, when we want them to stay inside, we put the latch up to where, even if they open the door, the latch catches and they can't go outside. So, that's how we keep them from, going outside without asking us first, or us being outside with them. So it'll change the way you conduct yourself out here. You will never walk outside your front door again and not look at that tree line. Because I'm telling you, every time I walk outside, the first thing I do, I'm looking at the tree line. It'll change the way you conduct yourself in your own front yard. I lived in Pine Bluff for the majority of my adult life. I never had problems, but it's got a high crime rate down there. I never owned a gun when I lived in Pine Bluff. And not that I don't believe in firearms and stuff. I just never felt the need to have one. And up here, I rarely go outside after dark. But I guarantee if I step on my porch and the sun's down, I got a weapon and a flashlight on me. And when the activity got real heavy, I carried a gun every time that I'm outside. And when I'm outside with my kids, you heard it too.
Been hearing it.
I heard that too just then too. But there it went again.
What was it?
You picked that up?
No, I didn't hear anything.
Bumping going on.
Yeah, there's like some stuff. Almost sound like a horse out there.
there.
Almost sound like a horse putting down out there. But there's not any horses back here. They're over here. I heard it twice while we were talking. But anyway, say hi, Sasquatch on TV. But
we're going out there this evening, by the way.
Yeah, we're going to go down
when we get through talking to you, we're going out in the woods and see if we can record any, I don't know, whatever's going on.
David, he's the master of seeing them footprints. I tell you, if it don't look like the Hollywood Walk of Fame where they plant their hands down, I'm not going to see it because I'm looking to see what's poking around the trees and stuff. I'll be stepping right in the footprints. David, he can spot them now. He found 5 last time we went out there. He believed to be 2 different ones, but it was 5 different footprints out there. I'm just walking all over them. I'm too busy looking to see
what a lot
something else.
People don't realize is most all this back here, there's a layer of leaves over the ground. So you've got watching for the impressions. And when you find a footprint impression, if you just gently lift the leaves out of it, if that's what it is, you'll see underneath the leaves in the earth what made it. And it was the first time that Mark had me out here. And we're talking not probably 50 yards out behind where we're at right now. And we found, was it 2 or 3 of the adults?
Yeah, I think it was
pretty large, but for about 15-inch long tracks. And then further back in the mud, we found 3 tracks of the.
Not him. He found all that. I'm doing like this, looking around to see if what's watching me.
We're talking about 10, 11 inches long. You know, not huge tracks, but so 15-inch tracks, 11-inch tracks, 2 different individuals, which went along right with what he had reported to me when he emailed me that he had seen a juvenile and a larger one. So, you know, found evidence of that, and I believe he had posted pictures of this on his YouTube channel as well. A tree branch just twisted, not broken like for wind, but like something twisted it. A person can do it. It's a branch so big around, and it was green.
The way it split, it was an oak tree also, and it was green, fresh. And you know what? When I first it wasn't like that. When we first put the game camera, the first set of game cameras went up on December the 7th. And that tree branch was not like that when we put those first 6 game cameras out here. And I went out there to check the game cameras 2 or 3 days later, and behind the game cameras, out of their view, right when it's going down a hill, that's where that tree branch was broke. It wasn't like that when I put those cameras up, because I had walked through there. And a couple days after we put those cameras up, that limb's broke, twisted. I can only assume, but that it's some type of marker, maybe a warning to others that past this tree branch, they need to be aware there's something up there that, you know, of course, was game cameras that they made to be watching for or something. But that limb is, it was 8 foot in the air, and it was green and it was just split like it was twisted, you know. And I got pictures of it and stuff. I know that don't prove much to most people and things like that, but all the stuff that I've captured and stuff, it was not to prove the existence of Bigfoot. It was just to validate my son's story so I could take action to protect my kids. And people have been bitching about the resolution of my videos, saying I need to upgrade my videos and all that stuff. And I tell them just flat out, man, you know, my cameras serve their purpose. I see that there's something out there that's not supposed to be. I take action. And my cameras let me know when they're closer in my yard. And I say, if you need a clear picture of Sasquatch, I suggest you go upgrade your camera equipment, get off YouTube, get off gas, and go out there in the woods and get the evidence and the images that you desire. Because you're sitting here waiting on me to spoon feed you evidence, you know, it's going to happen. And what I'm sharing is not to prove the existence of Sasquatch. I'm not trying to turn anybody and make them a believer. I'm just trying to plant a seed to where they might remember something that I shared. If their kids have an experience, that they might pay attention to them and take it serious and take action. Because I'm telling you, there was many years that my kids were telling me stuff that I blew off and blamed it on too much TV. And and didn't take it serious. And I'm just trying to do maybe for somebody what Missing 411 did for me, because it got my attention. Nobody ever said the word Sasquatch. It was just about kids coming up missing in rural areas and parks, and it got my attention. So that's the reason why I'm trying to share this. You know, it was just to raise awareness of Sasquatch interest in children, persistent interest in children, because being shot at in the cameras and all this other stuff, it does not keep them from coming around. It just changes the way they approach my house. And that level of persistence is what bothered me the most. Because everybody told me, if you do this and you do that, or they see this, or once they become aware that you're aware of them, they're going to move on. None of that stuff worked. And they knew I knew that they was out there, but they still persistently felt that they needed to approach my house and watch my kids and things of that nature. And it was the persistence that bothered me the most. That if they're so persistent and they're working outside, they're doing stuff outside their normal parameters, that they're breaking protocol, so to speak, things that they normally don't do. Well, what other things are they going to do that they normally don't do? They might just be curious on a Tuesday and be a kidnapper on a Wednesday. Now, I believe that they're just curious. But when it comes to kids, I cannot take that chance, because the wager in that gamble is my children. And I'm not going to take a chance. I believe that they're just curious. But I have to perceive them as a threat, because I can't take a chance when it comes to my kids. And, you know, so people got to realize that I believe, and I'm on their side, that they're just curious. But, man, when it comes to your children, I can't just, like, bank on that and be like, well, they're just curious. Because if there was a human being out there on my property trespassing, watching my kids from a tree line, his ass would be in jail. He'd be labeled as a child predator and as a predator. Well, if this Sasquatch is so close to being a human being, like people say, why wouldn't I hold him to the same standard, you know, and not be comfortable with him watching my kids? Like, people want me to be comfortable with that. I wouldn't be comfortable with a human doing it.
Or if it was a bear, if it was a bear, you'd be freaked out. Or if it was a human, so this is somewhere in between by the sounds of it. So, yeah, I wouldn't take a chance.
Put up a video, and I was just joking, because I got a sense of humor. And it says another video in my continued series of Bigfoot is a chomo. And chomo is a slang word for child molester. And I put that up as kind of a joke, because, you know, if that was a human doing the things that this Sasquatch is doing, his ass would be arrested. He'd be labeled as, you know, trespassing and child predator and all this other stuff. People got offended about that. And I'm like, look, if that was a human, he'd be arrested in jail right now. I said, but you want to give it a pass because it's a Sasquatch? And I said, look, I promise y'all one thing. Bigfoot did not get offended by me calling him a chomo. And I said, if that's what's going to make y'all get all sensitive and get the red ass, I said, y'all ain't going to make it here. Y'all need to go on down the road and somewhere else, because it's going to get a lot worse from here. And because I'm thinking about it, when people start talking that bullshit, I don't bite my tongue. I tell people exactly what I pick. The people with the peanut butter jar shit and everything, I tell them, I said, look, you go out there and give Sasquatch peanut butter. I'm not. I said, I'm going to tell you what he's going to do with that peanut butter. He's going to snatch a kid up, spread some peanut butter on his ass when he's eating him and stuff. I said, that's what I think. I said, if you want to go out there and give him some peanut butter, some Jiffy, I said, I wish you was in my house the night that these things was right out my front yard. I stick a jar of peanut butter and kick your ass right out the front door. I said, because you ain't going to take your own advice. And I can tell when people got real world experience like David here, that have learned things in the field, and their advice means something to me. But there's people out there that don't watch too much Finding Bigfoot and watch too many documentaries on Netflix, and all of a sudden they're armchair experts trying to tell me what I need to be doing. And I appreciate people's concern and things of that nature, but sometimes these people just, well, what you need to do is you need to try to establish communication with them and gift them. I'm not giving them shit. I'm not going to make them think that they're welcome around here. I don't want to give them the impression that I'm comfortable with them being around. I'm not gifting nothing. And, you know, and I've never tree knocked. I ain't never whooped out here to try to draw them in. And I won't allow anybody to come out here and do that type of stuff.
Right.
I'm not going to do anything to try to draw them in or entice them or gift them and things of that nature. But
now, have you heard about the Siege of Honobo, was it called, Dave? You must have heard of that.
It's right on the edge of the county that I live in.
Yeah, I've heard of that. It's in Oklahoma. What, have you contacted those guys?
No. The people that during that situation, from what I understand, they don't like to talk about it, and they've moved and whatnot, stuff of that nature. But I tell you, some interviews that somebody had allegedly with the people that live there, I learned a lot from that interview, because I don't want to hear about it if it's a human or a primate and all that argument. I don't care. I want to know about firearms, and he killed it with this, and this is what happened when he shot it, because that's the kind of information that's relevant to my situation, not if it's a human or a primate. And this guy was talking about, he said, look, if you shoot one, you better chamber the next round, because you're going to have to shoot another, because where there's one, there's always another.
Oh, and is this Bigfoot Chronicles, or sorry, Sasquatch Chronicles?
I don't know where I heard it at, but
Wes Germer, I think.
Of Hanobi, but it was alleged this guy, giving this interview, and he was like, and he talked about how that it was the woman come up and make a ruckus to get him to come out on the porch, and then slowly back up to try to draw him off. He realized he was trying to draw him off the porch far enough away from the house so they could ambush him. And things like that really stuck with me in his story. And like if you see one, there's always one that you don't see. There's one down at there's another one watching his back from the woods and stuff. It's been reported like that a lot. And I actually got a lot of information from that one and stuff. Then, some of the other stuff that you hear that you can't put into practice. He actually has some things and share some knowledge that I could actually use.
Right. So the Oklahoma, like this whole migrating thing, you think they do that because of the weather? Is that what he was talking about when he said they migrate and stuff? Do you think it's kind of like what homeless people do? They come from the north somewhere and move into your area when it's winter?
I've only been aware of them since November, or really December. And so I don't even have a full year under my belt of knowing that they're really there. So I haven't really been able to tell. But from what I was told by one of the deputy down here, he says the sightings pick up in November because it's hunting season. And apparently, part of their, I guess what they're eating is probably berries and stuff. You hear about, berry patches, they're being protective of that stuff and other things out in the woods. And they're having to move around more, I guess, maybe for different food sources, to maintain. I don't know. That maybe that's why that the activity seems to pick up, in the wintertime around November. I don't know if they're here full time. I don't know if they live down the road I know that there's a 51. Well, I'm not going to get into that because that's kind of close to my house. People be able to find my house from that. But anyway, I don't know if they're here, or if they're camped out right out here, or if they just come from somewhere else to come up here for their entertainment to watch or whatever, or if they're steady on the move. I don't have any idea. I don't have any evidence of that. I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of that different stuff, the aspects about Sasquatch that hasn't really been my focus, because I really don't have an interest in Sasquatch. I'm not a researcher. I wasn't reading books about these things or trying to study them before. I tell people I'm a drafted researcher. You got people that go enlist into the Army, and then you get people that get drafted into the Army. Well, when it comes to researching Sasquatch, I've been drafted into this. I did not sign up for this and to be a researcher. I was forced into this because I needed to gain knowledge, and I seeking help to educate myself so I can be prepared to try to, protect my kids. And I never started trying to capture anything on video because I wanted to prove anything to anybody. It was just so I could, get knowledge and educate myself on what's out there so I could, take the appropriate action to protect my family. Yeah. There's a lot of aspects of the stuff about Sasquatch. You hear about the mind speak and the smell that when they're around and things of that nature. And if it's a human hybrid or a primate, a lot of those topics, I scroll on by and try to find something that's kind of relevant to my situation. And I'll say one thing: I've never smelt anything. Never smelled a bad smell. I've never had any kind of mind speak. I don't know. Maybe I'm so old and so slow they can't connect to me. My Bluetooth connection not available or something. I don't know. But I've never had anything talking in my mind, because I tell you, they tell me not to pull my gun. I'm sorry, buddy. I'm gonna pull my gun regardless. We're gonna do this. But I've never had that. I've never had no disabling panic of fear when they're around to where I was immobilized or anything like that. But I will tell you this: December 25th at 4 4:55 a.m., I got a weird light anomaly on camera coming down from an angle. It seemed to stop right outside the camera view, and then it seemed to accelerate straight up. And the most disturbing part of that video was it seemed to stop right out the frame, but it goes brighter right before it seems to go. The light dissipates vertical, like it was exerting energy right before it went vertical. And that's what tells me that it ain't a mist or anything like that, because that light gets the brightest after it stops. It seems to exert energy right before the light dissipates going vertical. Well, we found another Scott Carpenter, who's a pretty popular, famous researcher. I sent him some of my videos from around that time from game cameras, and he found an image that looks like a damn alien to me. In one of those videos, it's got its hands and the eyes and the whole 9 yards. And
is that the one up high in the tree or something? And it's watching him as he's walking past.
In the tree, actually, but it's down at the base of the tree. But the tree where it's at is facing back towards the game camera. But behind that tree is my house. That's a tree on the edge of the tree line, close to my home. And that was taken on December the 24th when there was Sasquatch activity. And then I got the light anomaly on December 25th at 4:55 a.m. coming near my house. And I've seen some other things related to UFOs, and I try hard to find a rational explanation, because I want a rational explanation that it's a satellite reflecting light and it turns and no longer reflecting light and things. But there was one time I was taking my son to the emergency room at 3 a.m. because he had a bad cough, and there was something that come across the tree line moving so fast, it was shaped like an acorn, and it was solid black, and it made no sound. And it almost looked like the UFO from Flight of the Intruder, a movie from the 80s. No wings, like an acorn, solid black. The only reason why I could see it was because it was a bright moonlit night. And the thing that bothered me the most about seeing that was, I don't know why I looked up. I can't tell. I put my kid into his car seat. I'm on my way to the emergency room, but for some reason I did like this and saw it. I don't know why I looked up.
Huh.
I wouldn't have normally done that, but for some reason I looked up right when it was flying over. And I don't have an explanation for that one. I could, and people's like, well, what do you think the connection is? I'm like, I don't know. I put my blinders on and I try to focus on Sasquatch right now. My plate's full with Sasquatch. I can't put UFOs and other cryptic and dogman on this other stuff. I can only handle one unbelievable thing that ain't supposed to be out here at the time.
Yeah, some people say they're connected.
Line and wait, the other stuff's gonna have to get in line and wait, because I'm dealing with Sasquatch right now. UFO and everybody else just got to take a number. So I don't know. But I do believe that there was something else besides Sasquatch coming around that time. I don't think that they were. If I speculation, I don't think that maybe the aliens were interested in me specifically, but maybe in Sasquatch. I'm not saying Sasquatch getting on a UFO, but if UFOs are watching us or whatever, maybe they're watching Sasquatch too. I don't know. But all I can tell you that I've caught some weird stuff that wasn't Bigfoot related around times that I know that Sasquatch activity was going on. What the connection is, I don't have an idea.
You weren't into this stuff before you moved here, right? You just started to be interested in this because of what's happening.
I never dealt with any of this stuff. And I grew up in a small town in Arkansas in Grapevine. Population 75. Woods everywhere. Man, I got bucked off my horse when it was getting dark, and I had to walk all the way home through the damn woods and stuff, and never heard or seen anything. It wasn't until I come to Oklahoma, it's like all this, crazy stuff's going on with the damn Sasquatch and the whatever. I don't know. There's a time we was about ready to move back to Arkansas because of all the things that were going on around here that we couldn't explain. And you can't hardly talk to people about it, and
yeah, I know. Now, Dave, is this closer to the Texas border than where you live?
A little bit. Yeah, I'm due east of here. I'm just a little bit northeast. I'm about 60 miles west. West of here, about northwest, but not much more. We're about 30 miles from Texas border.
About 25 miles from Texas.
Yeah, we're not.
There seems to be so much activity around there.
I'm sorry?
There seems to be so much activity around there. It's crazy. The stories I hear.
For sure, but just north of here, a ways you get into the Comanche Mountains, which is, that's been a area for this type of activity for a long time.
That lady that I had on that had the zip line farm, that was around there, wasn't it? Up in Arkansas.
over by in a town called Broken Bow. If that's where you're talking about, over there by Beaver Lake, that's the only zip lines I know around. But
it's called the Blue Zip Line Park. It's in Arkansas, but it's Mena. It's close to Mena.
Yeah, I've heard about Mena having a lot of activity and stuff.
Yeah, Mena's what, probably, that's north central Arkansas, isn't it?
It's over towards the west, I believe, West Arkansas.
Well, no, Mena.
But I tell you,
that's more central.
When I started looking into this stuff, I never realized that the county I live in has the second most reported sightings of Sasquatch in the state of Oklahoma, which Oklahoma has a lot of sightings compared to other states anyway. The county I live in has the second most sightings, and the county that I border up against has the third most sightings, and the other county I border up against has the most sightings. So this county and that county and that county is number 1, number 2, and number 4 in Sasquatch reported activity. So I never realized that until I started looking into it. So apparently this is like an area that they're in, So, and like I said, as far as Hinobi, where there's a lot of people, a lot of activity that's been reported over the years. It borders right on the edge of the county that I live in.
Oh.
But I never would have believed that they're here. I mean, there's not a lot of houses around here. Everybody around here has large plots of land, and the houses are spread out. But you can hear the highway over here. You can hear the damn cars and stuff. And you figure that there would be way out in the woods where you got to take an airplane and land on the lake and shit and hike into the mountains to find them and stuff. Not right out here where I can go uptown and get a damn burger at Sonic and come back in 15 minutes, In the Sasquatch, you would figure that they would be right here like that. It blows my mind.
Yeah, when you're talking about towns in this part of the state, they're not big towns. They're small communities. And there's, like Mark was saying, he has 80 acres here. It's all woodland. And it borders other land that's woodland. I mean, it's heavily wooded part of the country.
A lot of this property around here, there's 80 acres is nothing in this part of the country. These people out here got hundreds and hundreds of acres that's, generational property that's been passed down from generation to generation. The people that live around me on my road, that this land has been passed down through their family from generation to generation. And they own the whole, far you can see, and the whole side of that road and stuff over there, and got cattle and stuff like that. 80 acres to these people around here is like owning an acre and a half, and having, to most people and live uptown or something. These people got hundreds of acres and stuff like that. So there's a lot of large plots of land, and a lot of times that land is kept inside the family because it's farming stuff. It's livestock and things of that nature. So that stuff's kept in the family and passed down from generation to generation.
Yeah, a whole lot of cattle around here. That's what I was doing earlier today. I was working cattle on my family's ranch in Hughes County. So there's a lot of people raise cattle out here.
So people can't just walk on the private land. So Sasquatch has got more privacy, basically.
What the hell is that? That right there was long that time. It was woo, 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 woo.
Was it more footfall?
I don't know what it was. It went woo, 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 woo. It made that sound like that. It's right back here, and I'm telling you, there ain't nothing back here. I mean, I don't know how I'm here.
I'm constantly scanning the area behind you to see if I can see anything. But
maybe we'll grab the tripod and just walk you out in the woods or something later,
But I keep hearing that back there. But that time right there, that was the longest I heard it right there.
Well, that was closer than it was.
Yeah, closer was. That's crazy. But there's nothing back here. I'm gonna tell you what. I've never had a problem with people being on my property. It's like I said, the people around here, man, they're not the type of people where there's no rent houses. These houses, are owned by usually the same family. I've never had anything come up missing. I've never had a trespasser out here. I've never had evidence of anybody being out here on my property and things. So for something to be coming out here making sounds or whatever like that, it automatically raises alarm for me because, the county I live in has one of the lowest crime rates in the United States. This has one of the lowest crime rates in the United States where I live at. There's a lot of people that move here that retire. Like my dad, he's retired military. He's a full-bird colonel from the Army. Vietnam helicopter pilot, retired after the Iraq War. he chose here to move to when he retired because it has one of the lowest crime rates in the United States. You know, so we don't have problems and things that people think it might be somebody out there in a monkey suit, things of that nature.
Yeah.
It's out here. You know, there's not a high crime rate, people crawling through windows and things of that nature. Because I'm gonna tell you one thing about Oklahoma that I learned: people around here collect weapons and firearms like Grandma collect VHS tapes. You know, remember how Grandma used to have all them old VHS tapes, the Wheel of Fortune and all that different stuff, and that's how people collect firearms in Oklahoma. It's not like other places that I live. It's nothing to know that somebody's got 25 firearms inside their house and stuff. You know, it's just these guys. They got large plots of land. They got, you know, cattle and livestock and stuff. It's nothing for somebody to have 20, 25 guns in their house around here. And, you know, so I can't imagine people want to come over here and try to break in over here, because I'm going to tell you what, people around here, my dad's got 3 guns in his truck for some reason. He's got 2 pistols here, and he's got a .357 in the center console and 2 pistols in his glove box. And he tells me that there's 2 other pistols in that truck that I don't know where they're at. You know, that's just like what people do around here. They got guns everywhere. I'm like,
y'all's firearm laws are different up in New England, I guess.
Yeah, I did the safety course, and I'm going to, well, I wanted to get my permit, but the police station's not taking any applications at the minute because they're not doing meetings. So I've got to go interview with the police chief and stuff. And because I'm from another country, it's going to take forever to get a background check and stuff. So
here in Oklahoma, the law is if you're not a felon or a wife beater or another type of criminal, you can legally openly carry a firearm.
Just like the Wild West.
You know, you can't carry them into a school or a government building or certain things
like a post office and things of that nature.
Yeah, it's a lot more. And, you know, really, we don't have the violent crime rate states like New York has that has, or, you know, Illinois, Chicago, where they have a murder every second, it seems like. You know.
I know, exactly. And it's more, guns are really strict in Illinois, I guess. Illinois and New York are like really, really strict. You can't even get a gun. And they have the highest crime rates in the country. So that tells you something.
Well, here, the bad guys know that we're not defenseless.
Right.
Yeah, we have crime, but not near on the level as those places do.
Well, one of my friends back home, she actually lives in Switzerland now. And she unfriended me on Facebook the other night because I was posting photographs of my son with his airsoft gear on. You'd ever see an airsoft gun. It just looks like a real gun. So he's standing there with an M4 and all camo, like full camo, and I'm standing beside him with my sniper rifle and stuff. And she must have been drunk or something, but she starts giving me hell, telling me I was promoting gun violence and stuff. And she ended up unfriending me. You know, that's the way they think over there.
You're getting along all right despite that, though, I assume.
In the country, yeah, for sure.
I used to have some of those airsoft guns. I mean, they're metal and the whole 9 yards. It looks just like my damn AR-15. There's no difference in it except the clip fits in there and got plastic pellets in it. You roll the little wheel on the bottom. But I tell you what, I've got videos of my kids out here shooting AR-15s and the AK-47 and all that stuff. 15, 16 years old. You know what? I'd rather teach them how to operate a firearm and proper firearm responsibility and you know, trigger control and things of that nature, and them to be comfortable with the firearm and treat it responsibly, than them waiting until I go down here to go uptown and they go in there and dig one out of the closet and start messing with it because I've never showed them or taught them anything about a firearm. I mean, my kids, you know, I bring them out of here. Right back here, I've got a bunch of targets. You can't see them, but I got spinning targets and stuff. I bring them out here, little target practice. They got, you know, a couple of rifles and whatnot, and things of that nature. But I let my kids shoot whatever they want to shoot, as long as I'm out there, you know, with them and stuff. But I teach them how to handle their weapon and, you know, proper safety and trigger control and things of that nature, because I want them to know how to operate a firearm. There was one story I was reading about. This one kid shot 3 or 4 burglars dead when his parents were gone because he went there, got the AR-15 and took these guys out that were doing a home invasion and stuff. And I tell you what, somebody come out here and I'm gone. That's my kids. They know how to go in there and get something loaded up and use it if they had to. But you know, I tell you this, I don't ever carry my gun when I go uptown. If I go out of state, if I go to Arkansas, I might throw one in a case in the back, you know, locked up or something. But I don't carry a weapon unless I seriously, the only time I carry a gun is usually when I'm here on my property. I know it sounds weird but it's here that I feel like, that I might need it more here in a certain situation than I would. Because like I said, we don't have a crime rate uptown. I don't feel like I need to carry it uptown.
Yeah.
It's on my land that I feel like I need to be on,
Wow.
Well, I tell you, man, I enjoy your podcast. It was interesting hearing about you living in Africa and your wife's from Kentucky and all those different aspects. I mean, that's a crazy stirring pot, with the Irish accent and all that stuff. And I love Brian Johnson from AC/DC. And and he's like, I can almost hear you saying Dublin a lot. That Dublin, this and that. But listening to you, and then you said you was in an AC/DC cover band, or
I played bass for a couple of years. I play guitar now, but I played bass.
That blew my mind. I was like, boy, I love that.
But yeah, you and I play the same kind of music, actually.
Yeah, I thought you wouldn't be into the metal and stuff.
Rig I used and stuff last time.
At the beginning of the podcast, I noticed you got that Kylo Ren. I believe it's Kylo Ren from Star Wars quote that starts your podcast.
Yeah, I paid some guy on this site called Fiverr.com, and you can pay different artists on there. Like a guy from Pakistan did the logo art. It was like $50. And then the Kylo Ren guy, he was like $25 for that.
And you need to, with that Irish accent, you need Scotty from Star Trek, what I was thinking. You need to start that podcast that I'm giving her all she's got, Captain. That's what you need to start your podcast with. She can't take much more, Captain. That's what you need to start your podcast out with more than Kylo Ren. You need Scotty from Star Trek, I'm telling you.
That's a thought.
That Irish accent, I love it.
So you guys are going to go squatching before the sun goes down?
I don't use that term.
You don't like it?
I think that term sounds silly. That's just me. Squatching. Oh my God.
Yeah, it does. It's kind of like those idiots running around hitting trees.
Yeah, it just sounds like a little kids club or something. Boy, I'm going to get in trouble for saying that. I know. But anyway, that's just me. I don't use that term. We're going to go out in the woods and look around. That's what we're going to do.
There's other stuff going on at the minute that's taking people's attention in the Bigfoot world that something like that won't even be noticed. I'm not even going to mention it because it's very, the whole thing at the minute with Bluff Creek. And it's split the Bigfoot world in two at the minute. Everybody's arguing back and forth. It's funny to watch.
Here's the thing. Old stories like that, and I'm trying to be careful of what I say about that stuff.
Yeah.
But I know people that were involved in that way back, and that was never part of the story way back.
Right. That just came out of nowhere.
The longer a story goes, the more it can change, especially if people that were living during that time are not alive now to take that up. I personally, I like Bob Gimlin. I don't know him personally, but I tend to believe what he says about that.
Yeah, I think most people do. I'm staying out of it.
I had a friend back of course, I was born in the late 60s, but a friend of our family actually corresponded with Roger Patterson back in that day, and that was never part of the story. Yeah. And I actually believe if something like that had happened, Roger would have cashed in on it.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, no disrespect to anybody that believes otherwise, but I don't buy that story.
Yeah, I haven't. I don't either. At first, I was like, this is interesting, but it doesn't add up. So anyway,
the thing that got me about it now, as far as Steve, How to Hunt, and Scott Carpenter and them, I know they've talked about it. Those guys, I appreciate them and their mission to bring awareness to the Sasquatch, the subject of Sasquatch. But I listened to that the other day, and it just kind of lost me when they talked about bringing this professional club in of these hunters and allow them to take trophies and cut their hands and cut their heads off and things. But it's a cover up. It seemed like to me, if you're really trying to bury this and try to keep it covered, you wouldn't allow people to take trophies because that's clear evidence of what happened, and allow them
to
true. In hands and go back to Canada and take it over, cross over, borders and everything with Sasquatch heads and hands and stuff. It just, I don't know. It didn't quite add up to me.
I am curious to see where it goes. But the Bobby Short that relayed that story, I guess, to Scott in like 2013 or so. I have actually, back in like 2001, 2002, spoke with her several times on the phone back then. And she never mentioned any of that. So she must have come on that information later on. And I don't know, but back then she never mentioned it to me. And that's, like I say, I'm curious to see where it goes.
Yeah.
I know I'll probably get some people disagree with that pretty heavily toward me, maybe, but that's okay. That's the way I feel about it.
Yeah, that's a Sasquatch word. There's a lot of disagreements.
And really, the only person living from back then that would have knows probably Bob Gimel.
Yeah.
And I just think he would have come forward with something like that if he knew it.
Mm.
That's my feeling on it. So.
Yeah, he put a big thing on Facebook the other day, disclaiming the whole thing. So.
I mean that, and to me I hate to see anybody slandered with something like. I mean that it's too easy to somebody anonymously slander somebody.
Yeah.
And that's one of the bad things about the internet and stuff.
Yeah, happened to me.
They do that. They build a rumor, and then it gets. I mean, it's just. I just hate to see that.
Yeah, it happened to me, and I did a job I do plastering for a living, and I was doing a job for some tech guy. He worked in computer programming, and what he did was all of the negative results that come up about me by my ex-wife. He just created tons and tons and tons of searches associated with my name so that it didn't make the rumor go away. It pushed it away to the bottom. So there's like about 30 pages when you first search me up in Google, and it's all about me and my plastering work. And that rumor's like pushed way to the bottom. Huh?
Plaster work.
Yeah, I do plastering. Yeah.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, drywall and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, I just, the Bluff Creek thing. I think I don't think that's a true story.
Yeah. Well, guys, so you're going to go hunting in the woods. Let me know what you come up with.
I ain't hunting nothing, but I mean, me, I personally, I don't go out in the woods. He's like, man, we need to go out there in the woods and camp out one night. I was like, man, F that. I ain't staying out in those woods overnight. There's no way you gonna pay me to go out in those woods and pitch a tent and stay out there.
I wouldn't.
Tent for a Sasquatch.
I don't sleep in a tent. I've jokingly said a tent's just a sack lunch for a bear.
Not me.
I put a tarp up, and if I'm near a water source where there's a lot of reptiles, I'll put a cot under a tarp, and I'll sleep out in the open. That's the way I prefer to do it. And I camp out by myself quite a bit in the commission. Oh yeah, I love it.
I'll be honest, no way I would go in these woods by myself after dark. I mean, if it was like midnight or something, you ain't gonna catch me walk outside my house and walk into these woods and be wandering around out there in the middle of the night.
So if I go out there by myself this evening, and next thing you hear from Mark is we don't know where Dave is.
No, I go out there, when he comes and he wants to go out there, I'll go out there with him. But I'm just a tag along. I don't go out there in those. I've been out, like I said, during the day a few times and whatnot. And my son and I went down through the pasture and down the power line. But things that they out here after dark and wandering around and shit, no, man. There's no way. The things that I've seen, the one I saw on that power line the other day, and I'm gonna wander out there in the damn dark. There ain't no way in hell, man.
Yeah.
That's why you take two people. If something gets after you, you just got to be faster.
That's when I'm gonna shoot him in the leg. I'm gonna shoot him in the leg, and I'm heading towards the house.
Well, good.
So I can wound him and I can get back to the house.
Well, that's good to know.
Well, good luck, guys. And if anything happens, I'm sure I'll see something up on YouTube and let me know what happens.
I hear you.
All right, man.
It was good visiting with you. And
thanks for coming on, Mark.
You 100 subscribers that you wanted. So on Reddit, you're looking to get 100 subscribers. So you can
I've got 101 now. So
I see you're on Reddit Bigfoot a lot and shit on them people, man. That Reddit Bigfoot, it is not nothing about real Bigfoot experience or knowledge. It's all arts and crafts and damn Bigfoot and mud flaps on your truck.
Oh, was that you that posted that the other day about?
Yeah, that's me.
Oh, okay.
Just a comment on your stuff.
Yeah, that's right. That pisses me off. It makes me so mad. All those stupid socks. And...
Around when it was St. Patty's Day, I seen them. They had the Sasquatch carrying the 4-leaf clovers, and it's like a cartoon character and stuff like that.
Annoys me.
But when this stuff first started, it was Reddit is where I reached out to for it. I'm like, look, I think I got Sasquatch watching my kids. Can anybody give me any tips on what I need to be looking for or something that I need to do? Because I was on Reddit all the time, I just figured they had a subreddit for Bigfoot, and man, it exploded on that Reddit thing. I mean, but I realized then Reddit is not the place you go for advice on Sasquatch.
No, or anything.
But there is some people that have some knowledge in that group and things like that, but there's a shitload of trolls and stuff trying to punch holes in stories. And you get so where you're defending something or trying to explain something to them that you're not even there for the intended purpose that you started trying to get advice or tips. You end up trying to defend yourself and explain things and all this other stuff. I give up on that group. I promise you that. But anyway. So shout out to Bigfoot people.
All right, guys. Well, good luck, and let me know what happens.
All right, man.
We'll see you later.
All right. Thanks for coming on.